Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to pick up on a small exchange which took part in Parliament a couple of days ago now. I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but Dawn Butler came up with something a little bit more urgent. It was Rishi Sunak facing MPs in the Liaison Committee, and Sunak managed to make himself look completely ridiculous by tripping up over not only predictable, but actually fairly easy questions to deal with. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, do you want a little snapshot, another little snapshot to just how disastrous the general election campaign is going to be for the Tories? Okay. Chris Bryant asked Rishi Sunak in the Privileges Committee hearing a couple of days ago about his response to the special report by the Privileges Committee into Tory MPs impugning the panel. So the committee concluded that 7 Tory MPs, as well as 3 peers, had maligned the committee's work, attempted to put undue influence on them in order to change their decision. And Rishi Sunak attempted to say he hadn't read the report, to which Bryant, sounding fairly surprised, pointed out that Sunak had taken action with one of those named in the report, one of the peers, Zach Goldsmith, who famously resigned last week rather than apologise for his behaviour. Bryant was making the point, if Sunak had known that Goldsmith needed to apologise, he must have read the report. Because the same part of the report had these 7 MPs on it. Same report. And surely they also needed to apologise. Sunak tried to say it was a little different for Goldsmith because he was a minister. But Bryant persisted. But what about these 7 MPs then? Then Sunak tried to say that he hadn't read the whole report. So Bryant was going, what do you mean you haven't read? Well, I haven't read it from cover to cover, he said. And Bryant just couldn't believe what he was hearing. He said, it's about 3 pages long. Of course, what's really happening here is that Sunak is afraid to take action against the 7 Tory MPs. One is untamable anyway, Nadine Dorries, because she's not only stepping down, or so she says, but she's trying to cause Sunak maximum damage in doing so. But the others could actually be brought to heel. So unless I'm mistaken, I might be in 1 or 2, but unless I'm mistaken, I think the rest have shown an interest in defending their seats at the next election. Now, they're not going to be able to do that if they don't have the Tory whip. So Sunak, if they want to stand at the next election, Sunak has the authority to take action. And it would not cost him any majority in Parliament, because if he won't take action against him, he doesn't have their votes anyway. He does not have their votes unless he brings them to heel. Not one single MP named in the report will vote the way his whips tell them to unless they happen to want to vote that way anyway. They are rebels. They are all behaving like laws unto themselves. But if Sunak laid down the law, that would be a different matter. Do you want to fight the next election? Because if they don't, well, go to the back benches then. Go and be the opposition. And if you want to fight your seat in the next election, right, then you'll do as I say. And so because Sunak is too weak to take action, he presents himself to MPs to be made a complete fool. It's impossible to watch the clip and not see Sunak as hopelessly inept. And by the way, the whole Liaison Committee affair was like this. It was absolutely hopeless. And it is remarkable to consider. He's the 3rd Prime Minister we've had in a year, right? The 3rd Prime Minister. And do you know something else? He's actually the best of them. What a low bar. What a tragic state of affairs when you watch this performance and consider that we have had 2 worst Prime Ministers, not just in history, in the last year. We've had 3 Prime Ministers in a year, and this is the best the Tories could come up with. Absolutely tragic. And of course, not many voters will have seen this abject performance in the Commons yesterday. You know, he didn't do PMQs yesterday. Okay, he's not going to be doing it next week either. All right, then. He will continue to hide away from scrutiny. But whether failing to attend Parliament or excluding journalists from certain outlets from engaging in his press conferences or just hiding under his desk as usual, at some point there will have to be a general election. He will have to call one in order to hit the most favourable landing zone. If he doesn't call one, it will automatically happen in January 2025. I guarantee the Tories do not want that. So he will aim for the best landing zone, the least dangerous landing zone at any rate. He will then have to campaign. Now, remember how all the polls suggested that Theresa May, I'm going to go back to 2017, Theresa May, she went for that snap election because the polls suggested she would be able to extend her majority. She had a very thin majority, very vulnerable to rebels. She was going to extend her majority. And then all went wrong because everyone then discovered just how terrible she was at campaigning. She hid away. She hid away from the public. She ended up losing that slender majority, never mind extending it. Rishi Sunak's going to be no better. Might actually be worse. Like, he'll have to attend some TV debates, otherwise he'll look like he's running scared to the entire population. People point out that Boris Johnson avoided some debates, but notice two things. First, he avoided some debates, not all of them. Second, Boris Johnson went into that election campaign ahead. He was ahead. He was playing a defensive game. He just had to make sure that the Tories maintained their vote share. That was enough. Rishi Sunak will go into the next general election campaign behind. He cannot play a defensive game. He has to tighten the polls. He has to claw back some vote share. In order to do that, he's going to have to get himself out and about. He cannot afford to hide in the election campaign. And also, once the debates are broadcast, he's toast. Absolutely toast. Consider that he hasn't even been out campaigning for the 3 by-elections taking place in 2 weeks. Postal ballot's gone out, so it's not like he could just be leaving it till the last week or so. The people are already voting in it. People with postal votes are already voting. Why is Sunak hiding away from such important by-elections? 3 Tory by-elections, all of which are very different, all of which could be lost. He could lose every single one of them. If he loses every single one of them, that will panic his MPs and, well, his opponents outside of the Tory party, you know, Boris Johnson supporters and so on, will make a great deal of the fact, how far back do we have to go before a Prime Minister lost 3 by-elections in a single day? You know, is it, and you think so why hasn't he gone out campaigning? Is it because he thinks he's more likely to win than by staying away? Does he actually think he'll make things worse by going there? In which case, that's not a great situation for the party to be in. Your leader is supposed to be an asset. They're not always your best asset, but they are always supposed to be an asset. But Sunak, if he's not campaigning because he thinks that's actually harming their chances, he recognises he's toxic for voters. And although the questions from Bryant were on a tricky area for Sunak, of course, he has to tread that line carefully because quite a lot of Conservative Party members, at least, if not the public, think, you know, some of them are against Johnson, so, you know, he doesn't want to support Johnson, but some of them are, you know, in favour of him, so he doesn't want to attack him either. So you can understand the trickiness. But the questions are tricky because of his own weakness. There are established ways to get around them. There are always difficult questions for any politicians, even decent ones, to avoid. Of course there are. And their opponents will always seek to push those questions. A competent political operator will give a non-answer, or they'll seek to reframe the question. And you can do this as much as you like. It's quite common. Sometimes you might even go on the attack as a last resort. What you don't do is give the sort of response that a rather dim child might, who thinks that the teacher is as thick as they are and will believe it. That he hasn't even learned the basics of how to deal with an interview and has not shown any signs of improvement during his tenure either. That would suggest to me he is going to get absolutely battered during the general election campaign. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.